Though I know I should be wary, still I venture someplace scary. Ghostly haunting, I turn loose. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice!
It's showtime! Welcome, bitches, to Beauties and Beasts, a podcast of all things Beauty and the Beast and shit. Oops, forgot the obligatory swear warning. My bad. I'm your host, the ghost with the most, taking possession of this 27-year-old woman who has nothing better to do with her time than to talk about these boring, shitty characters. Seriously, is this Brock workaholic or something? Working 2 jobs, running a podcast and a YouTube channel, and their love life is better than I am. Am I right? Am I right? All right. Oh, hey, what are you doing? Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice! No!
Okay, so that was a really bad idea. Okay, don't do that again. Okay, so as the intro may have suggested, today's topic is on none other than Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. Yeah, better be careful not to say that name 2 more times. Okay, so Tim Burton's 1988 horror comedy is considered a cult classic, and I would have done this for Halloween if I wasn't preoccupied with another Tim Burton cult classic, Corpse Bride. Really going down the Tim Burton list here. But unlike other Tim Burton films, this one spawned not only a cartoon spin-off, but a musical adaptation. And this isn't even one of his musical films. We're still waiting for Nightmare Before Christmas to come on Broadway, people. I think what makes it one of his most popular films is the eccentricity, albeit perversion of the titular character, as well as the character who served as an inspiration for goth girls everywhere, Lydia Dietz, and making Winona Ryder a household name. But there is a very controversial aspect of the BJ franchise, and that is the relationship between a creepy old poltergeist who's a couple centuries old, and Lydia, who is 15, 16, depends on the version you look at. While they don't officially get together in any iteration, they are still a popular ship in the fandom, despite the forced child bride situation. Yeah, take it as someone who lived in Romania for a time and has volunteered at a children's hospital, the long-term effects of that situation aren't pretty. So, why are these two shipped? Even though there's nothing romantic about them, and if things did get romantic, it'd be super creepy? Well, to understand the fandom, we must first analyze the source material. Spoiler alert, by the way. First, I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons, Arvin Joshua Rocks 15, Cosmic Trail, BellaPinkSavage, nalaxsimba, and TyrannosaurusVenom for their support. Once this podcast ends this year, the patron program will be transferred to Patreon. You can also show your support of my stuff by... I can't talk today. I think getting possessed really messed up my tongue here. You can also show your support by buying my merchandise on Redbubble. Just go to disneyfanatic23.redbubble.com. I've got masks, apparel, bags, mugs, stickers, and more, including Pray for Ukraine merch and merch for my queer-coded webcomic on DeviantArt. So, first, gonna go over the original 1988 movie of, you know what it's called, which opens up with Adam and Barbara Maitland, a young married couple who live in a big house on a hill in a small town in Connecticut. Although their local realtor is trying to persuade them to sell the house, as it's too big for a couple and really should be for a family. Hey, some couples aren't able to have kids, or want them, so back off, lady. In the Maitland's case, they've been trying, but they haven't been so lucky in the kid department. And then one day, while they're having their vacation at home, hey, they have staycations before COVID. They are just driving down the road, and they try to avoid hitting a dog, swerving into a bridge, and then they plummet into a river. And so, welcome to a show about death. Whoops, we're not in the musical yet. The Maitlands arrive home, dripping wet, with no memory of how they got out of the river. Adam leaves the house to retrace his steps, only to find himself in a psychedelic desert with a sandworm. Still don't understand this part. Barbara pulls him back, saying he's been gone for 2 hours, though it's only been like a few seconds for him, and shows that they have no reflection and that there is a book that suddenly appeared called The Handbook for the Recently Deceased. And Barbara goes, Adam, I don't think we survived that crash. Like I said, it's a show about death. Time passes quickly for the Maitlands now that they're dead. Their house is sold to the Dietzes. The husband, Charles Dietz, just wants some peace and quiet and to create a gated community out of this neighborhood. His second wife, Catherine O'Hara, or Lydia Dietz, thinks the place could use some redecorating with her ugly modern art. Her interior design friend, Otho, thinks so too. And hey, this guy's also in Nightmare Before Christmas. Sheesh, Tim Burton really likes to reuse actors, doesn't he? Remember, it wasn't always just Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. We had Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and this guy who plays Otho, I forget his name. And finally, there's our lovely, delightful gothic photographer, Lydia Dietz, who thinks the creepy house is perfect. The Maitlands want the Dietzes out of their house, especially when they hear the changes Delia and Otho plan to make. So they try to scare them off, but the living cannot see the dead. But they do manage to lock the attic and keep things like Adam's miniature model of the town to themselves. While the Dietzes start renovating, Lydia spots the Maitlands in the attic window. I see dead people. Oops, wrong movie. She asks the realtor about the people who used to live here, and the realtor gives her a skeleton key that'll open any room in the house, including the attic. Meanwhile, the Dietzes get a mysterious flyer for a bioexorcist who can help them with their problems with the living. All they have to do is say his name 3 times. Or, well, actually, there's no phone number. You just see the name written 3 times. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Now, see, that one doesn't count. You can't possess me now, BJ. Lydia tries to unlock the attic with the skeleton key, but the Maitlands block the door, just as a commercial comes on TV for the Beetle guy. Still unsure of what to do, Adam consults the handbook for the recently deceased and draws a door, which leads them to the Netherworld, the land of the dead. The Maitlands leave the handbook behind, and Lydia stumbles upon it and decides to read it because, she lives into that stuff. The Maitlands find themselves in a waiting room full of dead people, and the receptionist, Miss Argentina, says if they don't have an appointment with their caseworker Juno, they'll just have to wait. When they finally are called, they end up back in their house, newly renovated into a place of really bad taste. According to their caseworker Juno, they've been gone for 3 months. The Maitlands ask for help in expelling the Dietzes from their house, but Juno pretty much tells them they're on their own. Then they ask about Beetle. Shh, don't speak his name. Juno explains how, that guy was her assistant, but was out of control and became a bioexorcist to expel the living. He cannot be trusted, and he has been lurking around their model cemetery. And the way to summon him is to say his name 3 times. But don't do it! Trust me. But when they see lights in the cemetery, Barbara says, "It's him, Beetlejuice." Oh boy, I better not say it a 3rd time or we're in trouble and this guy's going to be taking over the podcast. Barbara says it 2 more times and they end up in the model cemetery. They dig up BJ's grave and out pops Batman! Michael Keaton. You know who I mean. Speaking of actors that Tim Burton reuses over and over again. The Maitlands are immediately put off by his disgusting exterior, excitement over murder, and his tendency to kiss and grope Barbara. As a kid, I didn't realize just how much of a pervert this guy really was. Yes, my parents let me watch this as a kid. Don't question my parents' choices. So, the Maitlands decide BJ ain't worth it. He's just too creepy. And Barbara says, home, 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 leaving BJ tiny and alone in the model, and they decide to handle the hunting themselves. They cannot be seen, but they can still interact with objects, so they put on sheets and go, "Ooh." Obviously, this doesn't work, and they are caught by Lydia, who at first thinks it's her dad and stepmom doing weird sex stuff. But when she snaps a pic, she sees that there are no feet, and she's like, "You're real ghosts? Are you gross under there?" But when the Maitlands take off the sheets, she goes, "You guys aren't gross." And Adam asks, "You could see us without the sheets? How?" In that handbook of the recently deceased, it says, "The living tend to ignore the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual." And Barbara says, "You look like a regular girl to me." So they all talk. The Maitlands say they want their house back. Lydia advises that if they want to scare her parents, the sheets don't work. Lydia tries to tell her stepmom about the ghosts and try to convince them to leave, but Delia's too busy preparing a business dinner to listen. And then at the dinner, Otho talks about his interest in the supernatural, and Lydia brings up the ghosts, and Delia dismisses her and says that she just like to Deo Mizade 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 Mizade. All the adults get possessed by Barbara and Adam, and they dance the calypso. And I have not gotten this song out of my head all week while writing these notes. Daylight come and me one go home. The Maitlands think that they've scared off the Dietzes, only to find that they like it, and they're going to capitalize on the haunting and turn this place into a sort of supernatural museum amusement park. When Lydia says that the ghosts want him out, the business associates leave, thinking this was some prank, with only the Dietzes and Otho remaining. After Lydia shows her family the attic and Otho stumbles upon the deceased handbook and takes it with him, the Maitlands think it's time for drastic measures, and so they summon Beetlejuice. Oh no, I said it thrice. Oh shit, I hope he does it. Yeah, I'm back, baby. Ugh. Man, this chick just keeps talking and talking and talking. Does she ever shut up? This stuff is boring. Like, why don't you go out, have some fun, and get wasted and Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice! Oh, not again! Okay, let me see if I can get through this podcast without getting possessed again. So Beetle J attacks the Dietzes in the form of a giant snake. Before that he can hurt Lydia, Barbara says the name, you know what name I mean, I'm not saying it again, 3 times to send him away. And Lydia shouts, "Why are you doing this? Just leave me alone." In the attic, Adam and Barbara scold BJ for almost killing Charles Dietz. BJ says that he'd rather do business with Lydia. "I think she understands me." Barbara says, "You stay away from her, you creep." And then a brothel magically appears in the model. Yeah, I know. Distracting BJ, while the Maitlands are called to the Netherworld. Apparently Juno put the brothel there to put BJ out of the picture. The Maitlands are now in trouble for releasing BJ, not putting him back, letting themselves be photographed, and letting Otho get the handbook. So she tells them to clean house and get the evidence of life after death away from the living, while putting on freaky faces to scare them. Wait, how's that gonna work when only Lydia can see them? This movie's full of plot holes. Meanwhile, in the living world, Lydia writes a suicide note, saying that she's gonna jump off a bridge. No, Lydia, don't do it! You have so much to live for! You're so cool! You inspire goth girls everywhere! She goes into the attic to tell the Maitlands what she's gonna do, only to find BJ tanning himself in the model cemetery. Seizing his opportunity, BJ says he wants to get out of this whole dead thing because it's just way too creepy. And Lydia says that she wants to get in. And BJ's like, why? Probably his most humane moment in the whole movie. And then he goes, well, let me out of here. We can talk, but you have to say my name 3 times. But since BJ can't say it, they play charades. Lydia guesses the name, says it twice, but before she could say it again, she recognizes him as the snake and considers talking to Barbara first. Smart girl. Just as the Maitlands are returning from the Netherworld, Barbara says that she doesn't want to do this and just wants to be with Lydia. And then they come in, see Lydia with BJ, and scream for her not to say the name. Lydia explains that he said that he could take her to the other side to find them, that she wants to be dead like them. But the Maitlands insist that being dead isn't fun and games. They know. Yeah, they know real good. And she can visit them whenever she wants in the attic. And as they've decided to allow her family to stay. You know what? They're probably the heart of this film. It's really sweet. I mean, they always wanted a kid, and she has really neglectful parents. God damn, that's actually sad. Meanwhile, Otho, remember that guy, has read the handbook and insists that they hold a séance, inviting the Dietz's business investors. Using the Maitland's old wedding clothes, Otho summons them into physical form. But then they start decaying, and he realizes he's performing not a séance, but an exorcism. As a last resort, Lydia goes to BJ and asks him to save the Maitlands, and he says, "Sure, but first, I want out, and to stay out, I gotta get married." Yeah, the musical explains it better. It's a green card thing! Still gross, dude. She's 15. Lydia agrees and says the name 3 times. What the heck? Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah! And that's when I have all the fun. I saw the damn exorcism, as promised, about to get married to my underage bride, like agreed, when vintage Barbara comes riding in on a sandworm and almost swallows me, and I'm stuck in a waiting room for the next century. Like, hey, all I did was save a couple of ghosts from getting exercise, and try to force a 15-year-old girl into marrying me. What did I do to deserve this? Come on, I'm the real hero of this story, and the Maitlands are the ones in the village. Don't I deserve some... no, don't take control again. Beetlejuice, no. Beetlejuice, no, stop. Beetlejuice! Oh, come on, please.
Okay. Surprisingly, that impromptu summary was helpful, so thank you for that, BJ. So, fast forward a few months, the Maitlands and Dietzes live in relative harmony, with the Maitlands helping Lydia with her schoolwork, and Lydia showing them pictures of how the town's changing, since they can't leave the house. And they're filling the familial voids in both their lives. Happy ending! Yeah, not gonna lie, a lot of stuff in this movie doesn't make much sense. Meaning the rules of death are unclear. Can they see him? Can they not? Or can they? Can the guy really get back to life if he gets married? Or is he just kind of a ghost in between but stays in the living world? That's not really explained. Sorry, Tim Burton. Not to mention, our titular character gets like 5 minutes of screen time. Good riddance, because he's kind of becoming a pain in my recording booth right now. The Tony-nominated Broadway musical, adapted in 2018, does much more with the characters, especially with BJ and Lydia being a chaotic duo. I mean, he still tries to force her to marry him, but not before they have fun scaring people together. Lydia in the musical is a lot more devious than the Lydia in the movie. And a lot sassier, too. I like her. A lot of changes were made to the plot, putting more emphasis on the Maitlands wanting a child, but too afraid to take the risk in life. Adding a focus on Lydia's dead mom and her relationship with her father, that part of the movie kind of just glossed over. In the musical, Delia is not yet the stepmom, but Charles Dietz's life coach and lover, and then fiance. Lydia and BJ find a connection in both being invisible, him literally being invisible. See, in this musical, to be seen, it only matters if a living person says his name thrice for him to actually interact with the living. And he's sick of being alone and dead. I mean, I'd kind of be driven crazy for that long, too. And Lydia tricks BJ so that she's able to enter the Netherworld in order to find her mom and bring her back, only for her dad to come after her, saying that he'd only been trying to move on because it hurt to talk about his dead wife, when he should have held on to the daughter that he still had. And can I just say thank you? Because the parents in the movie got no consequences for their neglect. Also in the musical, Lydia willingly marries BJ, but there's a catch to it. And she brings him back to life, only for like a minute, and then she stabs him. Oh yeah, and Juno is BJ's mom in this, and she is not happy with all this rule breaking. And BJ actually gets some redemption, him being the one to ride in on a sandworm to stop Juno from dragging everyone to the Netherworld. Apparently, BJ is grateful to Lydia for helping him to live and feel again, albeit briefly, very briefly, and he departs with no hard feelings. So, why do people ship Lydia and BJ? Well, I can only imagine, just a chaotic duo, at least in the musical sense. Maybe for that like minute of interaction they had in the movie. Well, she's a goth girl. She'd be into the gross, creepy, dead things. Maybe they just think BJ would be reformed at some point. Well, like he is in the musical. Okay, put it this way: in the movie universe, it's definitely not okay. They barely spend time together, and in that time, BJ manipulates Lydia into almost marrying him. And also, man, that guy's a pervert. In the musical verse, still not okay. But at least in here, once BJ is outsmarted by Lydia, he has a newfound respect for her, and they part as unlikely friends. Now, in the cartoon universe, oh wait, I haven't talked about the cartoon series yet, have I? And it's my favorite version. Such an oversight. Okay, so from the movie came an animated TV spin-off airing from 1989 to 1991. A completely different universe from the film. For starters, there are no Maitlands, period. And rather, the focus is on the more interesting characters, BJ and Lydia, who is 12 in this. And while BJ is still a con man and a gross creep, his relationship with Lydia is less like a Hades and Persephone situation and more like the Ghost of Molly McGee. Or rather, the Ghost of Molly McGee is like this show. Here, only Lydia knows about BJ, and they are best buds, and they go on adventures in the Netherworld. And while there's nothing explicitly romantic about them, remember, she's 12, BJ does genuinely care for Lydia. He does stop her from marrying another demon at one point, has a working shrine to her in his head, and Lydia says he's beautiful in one episode. Even though he thinks the word beautiful is gross, he's like, you really think so? And in another, she says that he can take her to her senior prom after hearing his shitty prom story. Also, when Prince Vince of the Netherworld tries to court and marry Lydia, BJ gets jealous that his best friend is being stolen away and she won't be able to have fun with him anymore, and he tries to sabotage it, only for Lydia to say, hey, that, well, I'm not ready for marriage yet. I just want to hang out with Beetlejuice and my friends and be a kid. Because otherwise, BJ would be all alone, and also he just can't get her out of his mind, and she acts as his morality pet. And oh my god, what's wrong with me? Why am I shipping this? Okay. I know I'm famous for my Applejack and Spike ship. Admit it, you all shipped Spike with one of the main six at some point too, so I'm not the only guilty party in this. So maybe me shipping this isn't that surprising. Yes, okay. All right. To be clear, for BJ and Lydia to get together while she's still a teen is wrong. However, BJ technically never ages, and Lydia will grow old and die eventually and join him in the Netherworld. So someday, when she's grown and quite possibly dead, feelings could change. No one be wrong. Okay, and thank you, Cosmic Trail, in the chat. I ship Apple Spike as well. Yeah, they're okay. And to be clear, when I do that, they don't do anything until he is an adult, okay? And as for BJ and Lydia, I read fanfics that have Lydia and BJ get together when she is older. There was this really sweet one where he did take her to her senior prom, and by that time she was 18. So a legal adult. Anyway, there are fanfics out there that surprisingly make this work. Some also try to merge the movie and cartoon together, and sometimes this works. It gets a little convoluted, kind of hard to make the movie and the cartoon the same universe because they're just so different. So, why is this a popular ship? I can only think of one reason: the cartoon series. Movie, I don't ship it. Cartoon, yes, but in the distant future. Let me have my fanfics. In the musical, maybe. The BJ and Lydia interactions are at least more fun than in the movie, but then again, forcing a teen to marry you is not cool, dude. And yeah, I know you're listening, you creepy BJ.
Come on, babes, just let me out.
Nope, you're staying in neither world.
At least let me do the outro. You know I could do it better.
Well, let's ask the patrons in the stream. Should I let BJ out just for this last time? I don't know. Should I say the name 3 more times? Let him out? Fine. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
Alright! Next time on this boring podcast, we're doing the video game and anime Angels of Death. Some creepy shit featuring a weird relationship between a 20-year-old psychopathic serial killer and a 13-year-old girl. Now that's just messed up. Who'd be into that shit? Anyway, yada yada, give us money, and hey, if you're down to party, just say the B word 3 times and I'll be there. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to ask if there are any questions in the chat from the people who pay. Although apparently there's only one person in the chat right now. Yeah, you're not that popular, are you, babes? Okay, don't try to get out just yet. Now you have a few more minutes, okay? This is the only fun I get. Okay, are there any questions from the one paid customer in the chat? Nope. Okay. Alright, I'm starting to get bored of this. Just say it, babes. I'm giving it back to you.
Okay, Beetlejuice.
Okay. See ya!
Damn, he's annoying.